Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about why Halo 3 was the best performing Halo out of all of the series, why it sold the most copies, and why it was the most played game on Xbox Live for 3 years. Halo was the most popular game on Xbox Live consistently. It could shift off a couple times, but most of the time it was. How would one game beat all of its competition for 3 whole years? How could it compete with 3 Call of Duties and other mainline titles and win for 3 whole years? Let's dive in. I'm going to start with the campaign as any sort of review would, but I just won't talk about it for as long as Halo 3 had much more of it to offer than just an awesome campaign. Halo 3 introduced a 4-player co-op campaign. It added a fun scoring feature so all you and your friends could have little mini-games between yourselves, and you didn't even need to be in the same room for this. You could play over Xbox Live too. A very common feature now, but back then, not so much. Even the campaigns, easy and normal, are lower than previous Halo titles, where heroic and legendary have gone up in difficulty during solo play, as long as we're not talking about how unfair Halo 2's legendary was. So it balanced the casual player and the more elite and competitive players, even in the campaign. In the Halo 3 campaign, the stages were all packed with adrenaline that creates only a rush a few games are capable of replicating. It's not just blowing stuff up or feeling like a true powerhouse either. It had a deep and compelling story in it. A reason why you're doing everything. It's one thing to just shoot for no reason at enemies, but it's another to be in-depth in the campaign and have reasons for the gameplay. Halo 3 had a great setup for some awesome sequences and great gameplay to go along with the story. Just the sheer badass feeling of seeing the Scarab blow up and know, that was me! I just blew a huge chunk of this Covenant battle to waste. Feeling like you're making a difference is one of the greatest feelings most fans have gotten from a Halo campaign. Walking through High Charity after the Flood took over was a unique experience you can't find in any other game. It was creepy, gross, and just awesome to get swarmed by the seemingly infinite Flood. And it's breathtaking every time a swarm of diverse Flood, including these new pure forms, comes pouring into you, especially at the higher difficulties. Just the fact in Halo 3 I was allowed to fight 343 and not get stuck in game cinematics where I have to press a button left Halo 3 as one of the most epic experiences of all time. No, it's not the epic as in epic gameplay. You shoot a ball with a Spartan laser, it's nothing really creative, but you're taking down this character that's been around for 3 generations of Halos, that's now a villain to Master Chief. It's just awesome that you have the freedom to take him down with your very own hands. Halo 3 ended the same way that Combat Evolved ended, with epic, awesome gameplay. 343 decided in Halo 5 to have us do an in-game cutscene, running up a ramp. It just doesn't compare. Even in Halo 4, 343 still had a cinematic event as the ending. Anyone can agree blowing up a Scarab or nearly anything else that's not scripted is a lot more fun, because you can do it any way you want. It has replayability. This made Halo 3 stand out. You're not forced to do something super linear. You're allowed to be creative and go at your own pace. Also, the Flood was pretty unique in its own way. Sure, zombies became popular around the time of Halo 3 being out, but the Flood aren't zombies. They haven't again been seen in the Halo FPS since. Many, including myself, feel like Halo 3 not having the Flood has lost its way, that future games don't feel like Halo without it. Just like if the Covenant never came back, it wouldn't feel the same. But I don't want to talk about the campaign, as a huge amount of Halo 3 players were never even opening the campaign, because the reason that it got so hyper popular was the multiplayer. Want to know something awesome about Halo 3? It was complete. It didn't ship broken, and it didn't ship with half of its content. It delivered so many new features and still brought more to the table with DLC later on, but I'll get to that later. The game pacing and game design was undoubtedly ahead of its time. Halo had competitors, yes, but it was unique in its gameplay. You wouldn't find another game that was out and truthfully say that it felt like Halo, because Halo had such a unique story, pacing, sound design, art design, and map design, as well as the weapon sandbox that made it stand out so uniquely in the FPS titles in all of those aspects. And even the UI. Oh, the beautiful UI. These days, you look at Spartan abilities which seem like cheap knockoffs of other enhanced mobility shooters, or even Reach and Halo 4 Sprint. That's pretty much the basis of all FPS titles these days. But Halo 3 did its own thing. It was its own game. It had an identity by creating new things, not copying others. Halo 3 was the last Halo before the trend of removing parts of Halo's sandbox. Personally, I think that this was a terrible decision. Halo 3 didn't seek to take out weapons or vehicles. It did quite the opposite. The Hornet, the Elephant, the Prowler, the Chopper were added in Halo 3 and never seen again in a Halo FPS. The only thing from Combat Evolved to Halo 3 that really got rid of was the Spectre from Halo 2. And even that was pretty much still in the game, but reskinned to be a Brute Prowler, due to the Brutes being the large Covenant enemies instead of the Elites. After Halo 3, things like the Battle Rifle and the Carbine and Halo Reach were gone. The Hornet and many other classic icons of Halo, such as dual wielding, were removed. Never again seen was the Mauler. Of the Brute-specific weapons, the Elephant was gone and never seen again in Halo. Even AA Wraiths didn't return until, I believe, Halo 5. Bungie decided to give us something that we had wanted for a really long time, and it was in order to fight the Flood. They gave us the Flamethrower, and it was a lot of fun, and fans just fell in love with it instantly. But after Halo 3, it was just gone. The Missile Pod was also a unique weapon to Halo 3 that never ended up coming back. You could use it to lock on to air vehicles or land vehicles, and you could attack it via auto-homing. The Sentinel Gun was in Halo 2. It wasn't necessarily a brand new weapon to Halo 3, but it was the last time it was seen since, I believe, again, Halo 5. In Halo 3, Bungie innovated the gameplay, unlike what they did in Reach when they fundamentally changed it. Just like Halo 2 added dual wielding and hijacking, Halo 3 added gameplay to it with adding even more weapon combinations and dual wielding, such as the Plasma Rifle and Mauler one-shot combo. But what specifically enhanced the gameplay was equipment. Radar jammers are pretty self-explanatory as well, but it's more for getting away or getting the drop on another team or opponent by trying to confuse them. Deployable covers will create a one-way direction temporary destructible shield at the same time. The same thing the Covenant used to use in the past, but it's deployable in this equipment. Then there are landmines. Yeah, anyone remember these pancakes? The flare will blind you from the sheer brightness that can be thrown into the enemies. The power drain can be thrown a large distance. It drains anyone's shields, and the blue energy emitted by the drain, throwing it into a full team, has always been a fun way to use it because it explodes at the end of it. Then there's the gravity lift, which is kind of self-explanatory. It's great for getting to higher levels. The regenerator is my second favorite. Just as the power drain takes your shields down, the regenerator brings them back. It slowly regens your shields instead of instantly though. Now, my favorite. So diverse. So many strategies behind it. Probably the most common through the campaign and the multiplayer as well. The bubble shield. The crazy equipment pickup allowed you to survive after someone shot a rocket or maybe a sticky grenade if it was deployed just in time. It allowed for clutch moments and created strategy and outplay potential. Why was the bubble shield so great? Because it had a spawn. Halo Reach had a cheap armor ability knockoff of the bubble shield. Yeah, it was fun to use, but having infinite uses and no pickups just takes a lot of the strategy of it away. You don't have to memorize where it was in the maps, when it spawns. Also, the original bubble shield never broke under pressure like the Halo Reach counterpart. Sure, you could break it if you went inside of it and actually destroyed the bubble shield, but under pressure, it would not fail. But overall, it added a lot of diverse gameplay. It created strategy. It created a new gameplay and became a whole lot of fun. Now, Halo 3 was the only game to have these equipment pickups, Other Halos have featured camo and overshields, but those are completely different than usable equipment. Personally, I think that it added a lot to the popularity of the game. It was something so tailored to both casual and hardcore players that it seems perfect, and everything is easily used and basic to understand, but the skill gap where how to use each one of them to the highest efficiency was a big gap rather than just throwing down a bubble shield when you could have turned a corner or easily escaped. Halo 3 multiplayer, whether it was competitive 4v4 Slayer or friends just having fun playing Griffball casually, the pace of the games was slow enough that you could call out spots and where the enemies were and coordinate strategy. Things are so fast paced now since Reach that with Sprint, by the time a teammate or friend can reply, the enemy could be somewhere else entirely. Especially in Halo 5 when they have thrusters and clamber and every other mobility aspect. Imagine calling out someone on the top of the map at the North Tower and then he just ground pounds and sprints away and is just gone by the time the other person can respond. It's so much harder to keep track of players who move at the blink of an eye. Well, Halo 3 never had that problem. Team communication and coordination created some awesome MLG or casual plays in multiplayer. It makes the game less competitive when you take communication out of the design and the gameplay. Ultimately, you have less coordination with your team that way. And that leads to friends and people that know each other having less fun overall. The diverse maps of Halo 3 and the map styles, including more asymmetrical maps that all seem to be unique in big ways down to the specific color scheme. Even the maps in Halo 3 are much smaller. Without Sprint, they don't have to tailor the maps around having super huge corridors. They have much more immersive gameplay that just doesn't stop every time because of sprinting. Halo 3 promotes that style of gameplay where you're always able to shoot, always able to jump, not in a mobility animation. Even teleporters were replaced with man cannons to keep you inside of the gameplay instead of taking you out. Maybe without having to create maps tailored around higher mobility, having to get those sightlines and everything just right and perfect, they got to create maps in Halo 3 that are just plain old more fun and creative before Sprint even came along. At least I think so. Sandtrap. It's a large BTB map that featured a unique unit never seen on any map or game since. The elephant. It can be a big mess or you can create cool battles with these elephants. Never again seen were these elephants. You couldn't forge with them or play with them on any other map. Players always assumed that it was meant to be played as a mobile base that never really caught on because you never saw it again in the Halo. Maybe it could have been used for more utility. After all, the driver could really only drive, and that's way too slow to do anything useful. Isolation is really cool because it has so many layers of height. It's featured on a hill and is pretty symmetrical. What's cool about it though is the flood-like bottom half of the underground, and it's a big change from the green grass to top infected flood area. It's got the flood pods and wall and everything like in the level Cortana. This map even goes well with its names, walls surrounding the entire place, seemingly a much more creative idea than kill barriers are. Narrows is a long map that features corridors so perfect for multiplayer I couldn't create a better version myself. While not my favorite map with the man cannons are placed for transport to each side, that it adds a lot of depth. The background here is just beautiful before this video. This map I had never taken the time to look at, but oh my, does it have more depth than I thought. Valhalla is the Blood Gulch remake that plays just like the original. A little slimmer, with the complete reskin and redesign of the bases. And it also features man cannons. Last Resort is almost like Halo 2's counterpart, with a few additions and tweaks. Pretty much the same gameplay as the first iteration. Styled during sun going down, the shadows are still clearly visible areas, and vision is no problem during gameplay. You can even do this legendary lift in the middle of the map too. Construct had a big arena to play in, was super good for diverse play, with a lot of open space and corridors at the top and the bottom floor around the edges. I had almost forgotten about this map as I never play it, but it was always one of my friends and I's favorites. Oh my gosh, the colors are phenomenal for this. It's beautiful. Look at the life they put into the map. Just look at the background. Most players won't even notice it, but the waterfall and the sentinels and all the life that got put into it. Epitaph was a small skirmish symmetrical map that was pretty simple but got featured in open area with hallways around the edges. It's got its own life to it, but just the sounds when it's quiet and calm gives the map its very own vibe. It has an ambient noise to it, outdoor life, and just like the rest of the Foreigner structures in Halo 3, seems old and ancient. It looks simply awesome. Snowbound was a mix-up map, not the most fun to play on, but it was also a super unique map. Most of the maps aren't in a snowy area, so it's got a lot of unique colors and is very memorable for its underground tunnels. Guardian, my all-time favorite Halo map, so diverse. In my mind, the perfect small asymmetrical map that there ever was. And is it beautiful? Just look at the colors and life into it. Another map with unique backgrounds and noises. It has the same wildlife, and that's fine with me. Even though the map is a much darker tone, it's still bright. It's still lit up in a way that newer maps in a dark setting just don't seem to be. It's made for aesthetics and clearly multiplayer visibility. There are infinite ways to play the map, and every time I do, I have a new experience. High Ground. It was always fun to play on because of the diversity of gameplay. There are so many ways to play this map. It's got ghosts, rocket launchers, snipers, bubble shields, and a Spartan laser. It leads to some nice gameplay that seems to shift styles every match. Even though there is a high and low part of the map and the high grounds, it does have disadvantages in weapons and tools, and they balanced it by putting a lot of the stuff on the bottom side of the map so that they had ways to fight back up. Even if it was never really one of my favorites, still from a gameplay standpoint, it works really well. The fan favorite, the pit. I can't say anything about it except it's freaking awesome. The bass feeling of it, the feeling of the map, and I never noticed these trees before I was filming this video when I went actually looking for backgrounds. I'd always been looking at the other side of the map before because I always saw everything was deployed and I wanted to get over there. I mean, look at the cameras. The level of detail that went into this map is huge. The pit has a lot of memories from many Halo 3 fans. And I could talk about all the Halo map DLCs too, but for the sake of overkill and time, I won't. But basically, Foundry was the first blank canvas for forging when you delete everything that started a lot of the custom games. And my lord, there were no kill barriers. Halo 3 didn't have those timers when you went out of bounds. It allowed you to explore and be creative. And it was even creative in itself in the way it would kill you when you tried to leave the map. Heck, even teabagging was fun back then. You could just taunt your opponent and totally shake their body just by your thumbstick. It was the ultimate troll tactic, and as long as you didn't die while doing it. And then man, the colors in Halo 3 are my favorite. I can't just quite define why I think the lighting in Halo 3 looks the best. It might be because the real and vibrant colors are just there, and armor is easily distinguished, but the lighting is still so realistic at the same time. But let's take a look at Abandon in Halo 4. It's dark and just doesn't have the lighting that distinguishes in multiplayer like Halo 3 had. Look at Guardian, a map nearly the same setting but lit up everywhere with a high contrast to its players. Abandon has a bunch of blues and reds in the background and a much less vibrant colored armor than Halo 3, so it makes it not stand out as much. Whether you like it harder to see players or not, the fact of it is it changed from 3 to 4. I don't see it as a better change at all though, but that's my opinion. Halo 3 had active community features. Even getting recon was a creative way to unlock armor that was limited to an elite few. With it handpicked by Bungie for a while who got it, it created a community thriving to earn it, not rec points and RNG. I've played hundreds of hours on each Halo since 3, and I've never really found the social features worth using since then. I'd be in the lobby and just start checking out people's screenshots waiting for the game to start, because most people cared enough to fill their file share. Most social features of Halo seem to have been distinguishing since 3. I think one of the key ways to keep a game alive is to keep its social features coming, not merely throwing DLCs at it. That doesn't save a game. Halo 3's social features were robust. It innovated putting things not only rare at the time, but unique to the market as well. Theater was brand new in Halo in 2007, allowing you to put videos in your file share too. This became a popular social feature. Had a Halo moment that was such a good play or so funny you had to share it with your fellow players and friends? Well, there was a file share for that starting in Halo 3. Forge was the most innovative in my opinion. allowing you to create any design possible with the sandbox to create a custom competitive map, or maybe a capture the flag map. Custom games aren't a super creative concept, but Bungie added a lot to the custom game lobbies in the options menu. You could set super high move speed or a jump height and mess with in-game physics like never before. This led to some creative ideas by players in Forge, as well as combination with game settings. One of my favorites was the custom zombie maps that me and my friends would join on in custom games. If you played a lot of Halo 3 custom games, you'll remember the map Toilet. Basically shaped like a toilet, the zombies come out at the bottom and would spawn and come up in the grav lift in the bowl where the humans were. And sometimes they would end up getting clogged, hence the toilet. That specific map has been my favorite of all custom games. It's super simple, along with innovating to what the Halo formula was before Halo 3. Even racetracks were fun too, because it was something never before seen in Halo. It created a social community for those who wanted to play on these or help create them. I love Toilet so much that I ended up creating it in every Halo since. I'm sure that most people who played customs in Halo 3 would enjoy remaking their favorite custom game maps in modern Halos. I spent half of my Halo multiplayer experience following friends through 16 out of 16 custom games. All people were with a few pre-mades, or we were all friends, or knew everyone who was becoming friends. I had the best custom game experiences on Halo 3, hands down. Halo Reach I had a few, but by the time Halo 4 came around, I never really found groups to play customs with, and it didn't seem half as fun or as popular. Halo was setting itself apart by doing things nobody else did, by being more than anyone else was. The unique gameplay, the great and growing community, and everything else behind Halo 2007 through 2009 was crazy. It was the game to play. It was the party game for most people. The way that Halo set itself apart was that it created so much that both competitive players and casual players would enjoy the game. The fine balance of this intrigued a much bigger audience. Now that Halo is just fast-paced and doesn't quite welcome the new players like it used to, the social features aren't as kept up. Even if 343 keeps throwing DLC at us, it doesn't make up for a broken game or an unfinished game at launch. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear what you agreed with, and on the same token, I'd love to hear what you didn't and what I can improve on. So let me know in the comments what you think. If you played Halo 3 when it came out, share a memory in the comments about your time in the golden age of Halo. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay awesome, YouTubers.